So tonight we're using Zoom webinar, so it's mainly a listen only platform, but there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. Of course, to make sure your audio is working, there is a computer audio button down on your toolbar. If you are having issues with your internet service and you might need to change your audio feed, we recommend calling in. The last portion of the Zoom link are a series of numbers. That's also the meeting ID. You also have plenty of opportunities to ask your question tonight. You can put your questions into the Q&A portal. We recommend putting that in there. We do not recommend the chat box because that will tend to get pretty fast. Alternatively, you can also raise your hand to ask your question verbally. Once you raise your hand, I will see a hand next to your name. I will enable your microphone and you will unmute yourself. If you are joining us by phone, you can still raise your hand by hitting *9 to raise your hand and hitting *6 to unmute yourself. And then from there, we can have lots of engaging conversation for tonight. I'm going to stop my screen share for a bit here and I'll pull up some notes on my end. So tonight we are focusing on different parts of Valley Water District. Tonight is District 4. I would like to introduce and welcome Director Linda LeZotte. Director LeZotte is serves on our Valley Water Board of Directors on District 4, which includes Campbell, the San Jose communities of Cambrian Park, Blossom Valley, Almaden Valley, and Santa Teresa. Please welcome Director LeZotte. Oh, and make sure you are unmuted. I muted you earlier. It's just getting some background noise. There you go.
There we go. Good evening, neighbors. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Albert said, this is one of 7 meetings that we're doing to introduce our new CEO to the community and also to talk about the issues that are facing Valley Water. I want to thank you for participating tonight. I hope that you're all doing everything you can to stay healthy, both from COVID and from the horrible weather that we have outside. The air is just really bad. So I hope that you're doing everything you can to stay inside or wear a mask when you go outside. Obviously we're doing this via Zoom. And although I would much prefer to meet with you all in a public setting, we're doing this because of the COVID virus, and we want to maintain a safe distance from everyone, yet have the opportunity to communicate with you. And so that's the purpose of these meetings. The meeting is, of course, an opportunity, as I said, to meet our new CEO. And with that, I'm going to welcome our new CEO, Rick Callender. So take it away, Rick.
Thank you, Director LeZotte, and thank you to everyone for coming tonight. It's actually very much a pleasure to be here. This is one of the neighborhoods that I much look forward to because I'm talking tonight to a neighborhood that I grew up in. I grew up in the Blossom Valley area. And so Director LeZotte represents not only the area I grew up in, she also represents my mother's house, many of my neighbors. I went to a Santa Teresa high school, so it feels good to be back home. And be able to talk about some of the projects in the neighborhood, which I have always enjoyed being able to grow up. As Albert had pointed out, tonight we're talking to the residents of Cambrian Park, Blossom Valley, Almaden Valley, Santa Teresa area. And those are all the areas that, like I said, were my old stomping grounds. But what I do want to do is make this a two-way conversation tonight. There's a lot of things to discuss with Valley Water, and I want to make sure that we're providing a forum throughout the entire valley to do so. So it's been very enjoyable. This is our 4th one in a series of 7 that we've been doing throughout the valley. And so we've had some really good conversations. Just by way of introduction, I did start off talking a little bit about the fact that I'm back in my old neighborhood, talking to folks, and I see some friends that are on there from my old neighborhood. So it's good to see those folks. But in terms of my background, I am a 24.5+ year Valley Water employee. I came up through the government relations office, working mostly on public policy and trying to chase down dollars out of the federal and state government for our projects, as well as working on public policy to make sure the public policy was to the benefit of not only Santa Clara County residents, but to the benefit of Valley Water. Prior to that, I've worked at Economic and Social Opportunities, which is no longer alive. I worked for Mayor Susan Hammer. Prior to that, Ron Dellums, and For those of you who wonder about my education background, folks have asked about it. I went to California State University, Chico, for my undergrad in industrial engineering and technology, and then ultimately graduated from law school, Northwestern California University. And I am a member of the state bar. So all in all, I may be new to the CEO position, but obviously I am not new to this area, and I am not new to Valley Water, but I'm very much looking forward to basically being able to talk to you about not only my long history here, but some of the things and what we're doing at Valley Water for the residents of Silicon Valley. There's going to be a few local projects I wanted to start off just kind of giving you an update on, and things that are in our neighborhood, in our shared neighborhood, in terms of things that are going on. And these are going to include the Almaden Lake Improvement Project. I'll touch on the Upper Guadalupe River Flood Protection Project, the Parallel East/Central Pipeline Project, Anderson Dam. You may have heard a lot about that in the news as of late. I will talk to you on that. Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project, and then finally Measure S, which is currently on the ballot. If you've received your ballot guide, you'll see that in there. And so I definitely want to talk a little bit about that and answer some questions that you may have. So let me go ahead and jump into the Almaden Lake Improvement Project. This is the Almaden Lake was something that, since like I told you, I went to Santa Teresa High School, which is right around the corner. I really had a chance to really enjoy the Almaden Lake, and I've seen it go from a lake where we used to swim in it to something that, of course, it needs cleanup. And so this is a long-term safe, clean water natural flood protection project, which has helped to protect the environment, restore habitat, and improve water quality. Ultimately, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to separate Alamitos Creek from Almaden Lake through the construction of a new levee. And by separating the creek, Alamitos Creek can flow directly into Guadalupe River, as it did prior to the park's formation in the 1980s. It also helps to improve the lake water quality, as natural occurring mercury-laden sediment will no longer directly deposit in the lake. If you've been out there, you'll see the no swimming signs, and you have to understand that's what we're really trying to fix. I know we're not trying to get back to swimming, but we're trying to make sure that this is a healthy environment. So currently, what we've done is we've held a public meeting on January 8th, 2020 to present the draft environmental impact report, which was recorded. It's available on the project page. If you go to valleywater.org, you can definitely find out more. What we're doing currently is we're working on the design of the project, and we're conducting an underground soil sampling to aid in the design of the levee and the nearby park space. I do anticipate we're going to be having public meetings soon coming up. Most of our public meetings have been just like this, by Zoom. So we'll make sure that we keep folks informed. Hopefully, if you've signed up to get information on this project, you will be able to get information, and we'll invite you to any future public meetings. Let's go ahead and roll over to the Upper Guadalupe River Flood Protection Project. And so that's reaches 7 through 12. And basically this is a flood protection project, provides recreational environmental impacts. It spans about a 5.5-mile section of the Upper Guadalupe River between I-280 and Blossom Hill. If you live closer to the Willow Glen area, you may have remembered in 2018, it was this very river that basically caused for us to call for an evacuation. You actually had the mayor of San Jose going door to door, recommending people, it was early in the morning, that they evacuate. So this is a current and present threat. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that we can improve the channel, which includes channel widening, the construction of flood walls and levees, replacement of road crossings, and vegetation planting along the river. Ultimately, when this is done, this will give fish additional access to 12 miles of habitat and upstream of the project. This is a project that we've long been working on with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. One of the things I talked about earlier is I've worked hard to try to ensure that we can get dollars from the federal government for these projects. Just recently, in February of 2020, the Army Corps was provided $1.5 million to pair with our $1.5 million to undergo basically it's a general reconstruction reevaluation report. So they're going to be looking at this and say, what portions of this project can the federal government invest in? So beginning in October 2020, we expect this report to take about 3 years, and hopefully through Measure S, we'll have funding, and not only have federal funding in order to move this thing forward. And so that's the importance of sometimes having the federal government as a partner. Moving on to the Parallel East and Central Pipeline Project. This is basically, it's an inspection and replacement of distressed water pipelines along the Parallel East and the Central pipelines. You know, this is work will be completed in about the Campbell area for District 4. For those of you tuning in from the Campbell area, that's where you'd see this. The work is going to occur in about several phases. and the first phase will be completed in spring of 2019. What this project is going to be doing is making sure that we give reliability and efficiency so that we can continue to deliver safe, clean water to both you and all Santa Clara County residents. So these kind of projects, even though you don't see them, you may see the traffic impacts. This is some of the things that we do to make sure that we're providing safe, clean water. Again, if you want to know more information, you go over to valleywater.org, or in the chat box, the staff will be placing information in the chat box so you can know where to sign up to receive information on the project. One of the largest projects that we have, and one of our board's highest priorities, is the Anderson Dam seismic retrofit project. This is something that you may have heard about recently in the news, because on October 1, we began emptying water from the reservoir to take it to what's a state called dead pool, which is basically nearly a complete emptying of the reservoir. And this was because the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, that regulates the dam, because we have a hydropower facility that's on the dam, ordered us to empty it because they believed that there was too much risk to have any water whatsoever behind the reservoir, and that they know that we have to do some seismic retrofit. So what we're doing right now is we're beginning tunnel construction. Basically, it's the outlet from the dam which releases the water, and that's expected to begin in 2021. Full completion of the Anderson Dam project, and that's the retrofit of the dam face itself. So basically the removal of the dam and the rebuilding of the dam is expected to be done by 2031. One of the things that we have heard is, okay, well, if you're emptying the dam, this is your largest dam in Santa Clara County. You can fit all of your current reservoirs inside this one. What does that mean for water supply? Do we have concern about water supply? Well, one of the things I do want to assure you is that we do have an adequate water supply for not only this year, but we're also looking at other options to maintain our supply in the future. I'm sorry, Albert? So in addition to that, Valley Water, we do have a diverse water supply portfolio, which includes groundwater imported both from state and federal sources, as well as the recycled water. And additionally, in addition to all that, we have water stored in a groundwater storage bank called Semi-Tropic in Kern County, which has stored about 350,000 acre feet of water, and that's enough water to feed 3.5 million people for 1 year. So we do have adequate water supply both in county as well as out of county, and basically we'll continue to look at other portfolios to bring water in. So we will do everything we can. I can tell you the board is fully committed. We're going to be having water supply and demand discussions in the coming months with the board, as well as looking at other investments that the board may want to make in order to ensure that we're providing for that adequate supply of clean, safe water for the valley. We definitely do not want to run into a drought and not be able to provide a supply of water, and I can guarantee you that the board will not let that happen. On Coyote Creek, even though it's not in the district, I live not too far from Coyote Creek. I'm not so much in the Santa Teresa area there, but I'm always there, at least, often go visit my family and friends. But on Coyote Creek, it's kind of tied into the Anderson project. One of the things that you may remember is the flooding that occurred in 2017 on Coyote Creek. Since we are going to be building an outlet structure that will release water into Coyote Creek from Anderson Dam, one of the things we have to do is make sure that the FERC compliance project, that the flood protection for Coyote Creek is taken care of in advance. So that's one of the things that we're doing right now, and that we're working on to make sure that by the time that outlet structure is built, that we've provided that kind of adequate protections so if we're releasing water from Anderson Dam, that they'll have adequate flood protection. However, we're going to also have the Coyote Creek Flood Protection Project is going to be expected to be completed by the end of 2025, and that will protect us from the flood of record, which was the flood that we saw in 2017. And so we're going to be reaching out to this community in the next few months to update them on the project's progress going forward. I've heard from a lot of people, because these are my neighbors as well, and it's your neighbors, and some of you I can see are even from that neighborhood, and shared stories about how devastating the floods were in 2017. That area is about 1.5 miles from where I live, currently. I do live right off of Coyote Creek. And I have to tell you, I'm sorry, truly sorry for what that community went through. It's unfortunate of what occurred, and some had to deal with not only the flooding, but also a long legal process after that. One of the things that I want to reiterate, and I've talked about this before, As I do, and I hope this process ends quickly and fairly, I can tell you the board hopes for the same thing as well. You know, we serve everybody in this community, regardless of what you look like, what your income is, what the color of your skin is. And so we're here to serve everyone in this community. And one of the things that Measure S will do, will also provide for protections for the folks on Coyote Creek if Measure S does pass, because it will provide us for not only the long-term operations and maintenance on Coyote Creek, but it will provide for fixing of some of the problems that so many people have talked to us about, and that's what Measure S is about. So speaking of Measure S, I'm going to ask for Albert to run a video. The best way I think I can describe Measure S is through this video. It's about 1.5 minutes, and so Albert, can you go ahead and run the video, and then I'll talk a little bit about it.
What is the Safe Clean Water and Natural Flood Protection Program? The Safe Clean Water and Natural Flood Protection Program was overwhelmingly approved by 74% of Santa Clara County voters in 2012. The program identified 5 priorities developed in collaboration with thousands of residents and stakeholders. Priority A, a safe, reliable water supply. Building sustainable, locally controlled water supply projects that are resilient to emergencies, disasters, and droughts. Priority B, reduce toxins and contaminants in our waterways. Providing a safe and clean supply of water, ensuring our waterways are protected from toxins, contaminants, and pollution. Priority C, protect our water supply from earthquakes and natural disasters. Protecting our water supply, water quality, dams and flood protection channels from public emergencies, earthquakes, natural disasters, and climate change. Priority D, restore habitat and provide open space. Protecting our natural areas by working to restore habitats along creeks and the bay. Priority E, provide flood protection. Funding projects that protect our homes, schools, and businesses from the threat of floods. The program helps us care for waterways and provide flood protection to homes, schools, and businesses. As we contend with public emergencies, natural disasters, population growth, and uncertain future water supplies, we are exploring how to replace and renew the existing program to address these challenges.
So that's just a little bit of on Measure S and what it does and the things that it will be able to do in our community if it's passed. The important thing about this program is we've been working on building this program since December of last year when the board first said, let's explore how do we fix our current program. We know that it's not working. Let's explore fixing it. We received more than 21,000 inputs from community members. Some filled out, 17,000 surveys were filled out, and people saying, here's the kind of program that we want. The number 1, 2, and 3 issues that we heard, number 1, we want you to fix Anderson Dam. We want you to move this along quickly. We want you to hurry up. Let's make sure that it gets done. People understood there was additional costs that we incurred or that we found as we were going from Anderson Dam, looking at Anderson Dam from 2012 to date. The number 2 issue, make sure that you're providing us a quality supply of water. Please make sure that our water quality is not, that there's enough quantity and the quality and that that's not stressed. Number 3, was homelessness. I do see a question that came in already in the chat talking about homelessness and people saying, what are you doing about homelessness in our community and how are you going to address that? As a result of that, we changed the program and we added actually on a new section. You heard about the 5 things that it used to originally do was ensure a safe supply of water. The proposal will still do that. Looking at reducing toxins, hazards, and contaminants in our waterways. The proposal will still do that. Protecting our water supply from earthquakes and natural disasters for Anderson, as well as others, it will still do that. Restoring wildlife habitat and open space, providing flood protections to homes, schools, and businesses. And then finally, the one that we added on additionally was protecting public health and safety for our community. And that's going to be dealing primarily with homelessness, which we have heard you. One of the things that we were doing is when we originally put Clean Safe Creeks together, and that was in 2000, we put enough money in there that we thought it would allow for us to do homeless encampment cleanups throughout the community. quickly, within about 10 years, we'd spent all of the dollars there. And Safe Clean Water, just in this last one, in 2012, we tripled that amount. We said, okay, well, we saw what happened. We'll be able to address it if we triple the amount for cleanups. Well, we spent that in the first 5 years. Here's where we sit right now. We know that just going in and just cleaning up the homeless encampments is not working. What's going on is we go in, we clean them up, and the homeless go back and re-encamp there. We have included in this program a different approach. We're not going to continue to do the same thing. The different approach is that we have $500,000 included a year to provide for social services to move these folks out of the creekways, because we know that without social services, we can't get them out. So we won't be doing the social services. We'll be teaming up with other entities that will be providing the social services kind of support that is needed to remove these people out of these creekways. And we still have provided for cleanup services for this. So we will get to the question that did come in, but this is something we're committed to. This is one of the hardest things that we're doing. We're also trying to work with several other agencies within Santa Clara County to ensure that we're working on programs and efforts aimed at this. This is something that I've been having ongoing calls. I was placed into this seat on July 13th. I've had several calls, not only with the city of San Jose, you've had the mayor directly engaged, not only with the county of Santa Clara. Cindy Chavez, the president of the Board of Supervisors, is committed to this. So is our board of directors. We're trying to find a solution. This is one of the hardest solutions in dealing with, especially right now, as we're dealing with the COVID crisis. So at that, one of the things I'd like to do is go ahead and start with a Q&A so that we can take any Q&A that you may have. So Albert, I'll look to you and see what we have. Hopefully we've been able to get back on Facebook. It doesn't appear so.
Yeah, we're still trying. It's not responding to me pressing the go live button, so I'm constantly trying here in the background. If anything, we'll post a recording to Facebook as a video and make sure everyone gets to see it in that direction, in that way. So we do have options. All right, so just as a reminder for those joining us via Zoom today, I did post the Zoom link onto our Facebook page as well, so that folks can still join us in some fashion. Feel free to enter your questions in our Q&A portal. Again, that's at the bottom of your toolbar. And you can also raise your hand to ask your questions. And then, so the first question we have right now is from Katie. Our neighborhood is concerned about the brush fires and trash from the homeless camp on Valley Water land. What is your plan and timeline to resolve these public health problems?
So that was something that I talked about, and that's something that we're trying to do differently within Measure S. And that's why I said the program that we initially put forward in 2012, if we knew today, in 2012, what homelessness was going to look like today, obviously it's bursting at the seams in terms of that's there. The brush fires and trash are throughout the entire community. Like I said, literally my backyard abuts the Coyote. I see the same thing. I understand the concerns of the community. This is one of the hardest things to deal with. During COVID, we turned off basically working with the cities because the CDC guidelines basically said do not remove homeless encampments because they did not want to spread COVID from homeless encampments and having people going from community to community. We're trying to work jointly right now with the city of San Jose to basically to at least be able to address the cleanups without removing the encampments as we're still under the CDC guidelines. But this is something that we're serious about. This is something that we're committed to. This is something that I'm committed to. How do we do this in a humanitarian type fashion where we can remove folks from the creeks? If indeed Measure S passes, I believe we have one of the tools to hopefully be able to employ removing folks from the creeks, at least trying to provide for the services. That currently doesn't exist. Will that work? Well, I think it's going to work better than what's going on right now, because what we're doing right now is we're just going in. We're going in with the police protections. We're going in with the other protections that actually before COVID, we would clean out the camps. I told folks, and this is the truth, we'd come in and they would cut the tents of the individuals that were there for safety purposes, remove everything, and then the people would just come back. So this is something we're committed to. We hear the neighbors. We hear the, and this is not just in the community I'm talking to, this is county-wide. There's not one single community where we haven't received these same kind of complaints. And I think what the public wants from us is they just want us to coordinate and make it work. And I'm hoping that we're going to be able to find a coordinated approach in doing this. I don't know if Director LeZotte has anything else that she wants to add on to this, but this is an issue that has just been going on. I know that there's not one director on our board that doesn't feel this issue. Director LeZotte, anything that you wanted to add on this one?
Well, I think you said it very well. I just wanted to assure the community that this is something that we're aware of. And as our CEO said, it's happening in every community. And we're a little hamstrung by the CDC in attempting to remove some of the homeless encampments. However, the city and the county are both working to rehouse some of the homeless. And that's one way to help solve the problem is to get them into housing. But as Rick said, we're working to at least deal with the potential for fires or garbage buildup without necessarily removing the camps. So it is something that we're working on. We're working with our partners, and we're a little hamstrung in some of what we need to do. But it is very aware by each director of what's going on in their communities.
Okay, thank you. And I do want to note that for those joining us now on Facebook Live, we are live now on Facebook, so we can take your questions via the comments and relay them in. All right, so we do have a few questions coming in here. I'm gonna go through our list here. A question from Ronald Horry. Will dewatering Anderson mean more flow out of the outlet pipe?
Yes, that will. So dewatering Anderson means that we have actually opened the outlet pipe. If you were to go to the base of our outlet pipe in Morgan Hill, you will see additional flows in what you'd have seen prior to October 1st. So there is additional flows out of out of the outlet pipe going directly into Coyote Creek. I'm hoping I'm answering what you asked. If there's something more that you need, Mr. Horry, please go ahead and chime back in or raise your hand and come in and ask the question.
All right, thank you. And we do have about 5 folks on Facebook Live, another 13 joining us via Zoom tonight. So we'll see how that goes as well. So we have a question from Trudy LaFrance. Didn't the former parcel tax still have $52 million left for Anderson Dam work? And Measure S only include $2 million more.
No, Ms. LaFrance, I hope I'm addressing you correctly. No, that's absolutely incorrect. The entire amount that would have been collected under the original Safe Clean Water was $48 million. The entire amount that we've increased it to for Anderson Dam will now be $52 million. And those are inflated dollars worth. So the dollars for Anderson, yes, we did add $2 million more into Anderson. We are looking for additional dollars from both the federal and the state government in order to move Anderson along. We do know that Anderson is one of the priorities for this community. We're committed to making this, to moving Anderson along. Anderson is financed through not only the water rates, through Safe Clean Water, but we'll also be looking for federal dollars through dam rehabilitation efforts. So no, the former parcel tax did not have those additional dollars in there.
All right, thank you. The next question here, Trudy had a follow-up question, and this was related to this, whether there was a sunset clause in Measure S. So Trudy asked, why is there no sunset clause in Measure S?
To answer that, it's an excellent question. Thank you, Ms. LaFrance. The current Measure S was put in for 15 years. We basically had a sunset clause. The very first Clean Safe Creek was also 15 years. Around 10 years time frame, we'd go back to the community and we'd say, do you want to renew these efforts to pay for these water projects? We know that these water projects last forever, and the need for safe, clean water lasts forever. We've been showing the community that we've been doing this for 20 years, and the need goes on. As we put this together, as we polled, as we talked to the 17,000 up to 21,000 residents, that's one of the things that we heard. The residents are ready for long-term protection that's not going to put themselves at risk. What I'm going to point to is the situation that happened in Alviso. And Alviso, for those of you like me that were out here in the early 80s that saw the flooding of Alviso, that project is now, we built the project in the late 80s, early 90s, and because of the fact that there wasn't enough dollars to maintain it, that project is back, the project is back in the floodplain. Just last night, we had a meeting with members of that community to explain to them why they're back in the floodplain and what the risks are back to their home. The community wants to make sure that we are protecting them in the long term. The community makes, and we've heard this from polling, we've heard this from focus groups, and we've heard this from many, many people. So those of you that looked at both, not only Measure T, but also Measure S, and said that, yes, these are the kind of things that we need long-term protections. At what point in our life do we want to say that no, safe, clean water and natural flood protection is not something that we want? We want to make sure we're looking out for for the future generation, and that we're providing for enough dollars that we're not pitting people back into the floodplain. So what we've done is there is a baked-in type of sunset clause. Every 15 years, the Independent Monitoring Committee starts with them. They basically will reevaluate this, as well as we'll have another community process, and it requires within the measure. If you look at the components of the measure, every 15 years, it requires a community-based process that then is going to result in a recommendation to our board of directors. The board of directors has to either repeal the measure, has to either reduce the measure, or they have to either or allow the measure to go forward at the same cost. So there is a baked-in sunset clause. And if you look at what they did in Measure W in LA, what we did is we designed after the best management practices to ensure local government is funded and providing for the protections that people expect around safe, clean water.
All right, thank you, Rick. And I have a related question from Trudy, so I want to keep some of these Measure S topics kind of flowing together here. Trudy asks, why Measure S now when there were still 7 years left in the current parcel tax?
Oh, and that's a wonderful question. That's the way I've described this to folks is just as I talked about the homeless and that we spent all of the dollars to provide for homeless protection or provide for homeless encampment cleanup. Not only did we do that, however, there was also projects that were in there that there was not enough funding because we did not know the environment that we're going to face in terms of the regulatory environment. One of the regulatory changes that we've seen in the state government is that now you have endowments on projects. So each project that you built, you may have to put a $5 to $7 million endowment. Those factors were not figured in. Some of the costs that when we put the projects together were just estimated costs. So what we have is, the way I describe it is you have a broken car. When your car is broken, do you continue to drive it for another 7 or 8 years and say, I know my car is broken, but I'm just going to wear it out? Or do you fix the car because you know it's going to go further, longer, and provide for the expectations that the community has? And that's exactly what we're doing. We're going back to the community because the community says, fix the broken car. And that's what we're doing. We're giving a proposal to fix that broken car.
All right, thank you, Rick. And then I'm going to change up the topic here a little bit. We have a question from Katie. Thank you for your focus on the 200 homeless camps now in San Jose. We have tents against our back fence and valley water land. We get brush fires once or twice a week. Fire protection and trash removal are important than moving out the homeless. Since they just came back to the same locations within 2 weeks, these folks do not want to be rehoused. So it may be more of a comment, but
it's a comment, and like I said, I understand. We feel your pain, and I apologize for what you're going through. What we're hoping is that the new approach and the additional dollars will help us to do this. When we talk about public health and safety, if you look and see within the Safe Clean Water measure, there's things that are included that we didn't have before. One of the things that we've never been able to finance was the assistance of working with the different police departments to provide for public safety for our crews that are going out there. There hasn't been, when we were doing encampment removals, there wasn't one single week where I did not get a report that one of our crews had a gun pulled on them, had a knife pulled on them, and so we have to provide the protections. This is absolutely the truth. If people say, well, does the policing help? Well, I cannot send people out there that are walking out with fish nets to basically capture fish and to determine what kind of fish it is, and that's what they have for protection. Or my crews, all they have is a backhoe in order to remove down trees. We are not armed. We're not a public safety. We don't have a public safety mechanism. This measure provides for us to basically work with public safety to address some of those things. One of the things that, like I said, we've got to get together as local governments. The residents, I'm a resident. I live here. I don't just drop into this community. I'm going to be voting yes on this because I can tell you, not because I work for this, but because my family lives here. I live here. Like I said, I live against Coyote Creek, and literally I can see it out my back window right now. So you've got to understand, I believe in this, and I'm hoping that we can make the change to see the changes in this community that we'd like to see. Again, thank you. I apologize for what you're experiencing, but I'm hoping that we can find a different way to do this so that you're not going to have fires at your back fence or tents against your back fence along the creek. Our goal is to get folks out of the creek so that we don't have things are basically, water quality issues flowing into the creeks. We want to create a healthy environment too. We are one of you. We are part of you. We live in this community too.
All right, thank you. And I do see a comment or a question on Facebook Live. It looks like one of our other directors, Director Gary Kremen, just not sure if it's a tongue-in-cheek question. Is it true that Valley Water is one of the best special districts in the state?
Well, if that came from a director, I'm not going to dispute if we're one of the best special districts in the state. But yes, I believe the reason why I've been here this long is it's one of the best special districts in the state. My background is not only what I do here, but it's also civil rights and environmental justice. This is what I've been fighting for. This is why I stay here. Like I said, I went to Santa Teresa High School. I walked up Calero Creek going home. This is the Santa Clara Valley Water District is an agency that I've always known and I've always admired. It's an honor for me to be in this seat and be able to work for an agency that I know is doing the right thing and that's trying to make changes in this community and providing clean, safe creeks, and a healthy water supply for folks. Director LeZotte, did you have anything? I saw you lean forward.
I did. I, as a member of the Special Districts Association, I can absolutely concur that we are right up there at the top. Doing what we need to do and doing it with an eye on the public's dollars.
Thank you, Director LeZotte.
All right, moving on to the chat box here. I think I see a question from David Noel. Is there any way to divert Anderson Dam water to other dams or underground storage? If not, will such ability be added in the future projects so that we don't have to waste water when a dam needs to be emptied?
So one of the things, and that's a very good question, one of the things that we did with the water that came from Anderson Dam, and we do have the ability to divert water from Anderson to our other groundwater recharge ponds. Anderson and all of the folks that are in South County, Morgan Hill, San Martin, Gilroy, they really rely on the groundwater supply. That's why the water in Anderson Dam is so critical. We can utilize the water in order to transfer it to other areas. We are trying to make the best use of every single drop of that water that we've been asked to release. The water that we release to the creeks not only provides for the environment, for fisheries, but it also provides for groundwater recharge. One of the things that we will be doing is providing, we're actually working on this right now, to provide imported water to flow through the creeks and actually chill it to continue to provide for that. But yes, we are trying to make use of all of the water that we can from Anderson Dam. But right now, until we get it fixed, we're not going to basically be able to capture it and make the same kind of use that we have been. So, excellent question.
And I do see now that Director Kremen is in the audience on Zoom, so I'm going to promote him just a panelist just for when we have a moment for him to say hello. In the meantime, I'm going on to the next question here. Trudy asked, is there backup power for the water purification plant? I think she may mean the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Plants or our treatment plants?
Well, the answer is we have actually 4 treatment plants. We have Penitentia, a water treatment plant. We have Santa Teresa located in Director LeZotte's district, I believe, Santa Teresa water treatment plant, as well as you have Rinconada, which is in the Los Gatos Hills. And then you have the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Plant. All of our plants have backup power and have the ability to basically be able to last for between 4 and 6 days if we were to completely lose power. So that's one of the things that we're actually looking at right now. I've tasked staff with looking at basically a power master plan. The reason why I've done that is if you look at where we are right now with climate change, where we are right now with the fact that we haven't seen rolling blackouts for 20 years, but we just saw rolling blackouts 2 weeks ago. So what does that mean for us? That means that we need to make sure that we're prepared. When we saw all the wildfires, yes, we had our emergency operations center activated, and we're ensuring that we were continuing to provide safe, clean water for the valley. One of the things that we saw this time with the wildfires was we saw for the very first time in the history of Valley Waters, we actually had to evacuate one of our water treatment plants. And so that was Penitentia, that was in the hills of Berryessa that we had to evacuate. So we're trying to make sure that we have a power master plan that we can provide for not much longer power supply if needed. But yes, we do have that, and we will be coming back to the board with the power master plan. And I do see Director Kremen has joined us, and so I don't know if he wanted to say hello to the audience. I saw you unmuted, Director Kremen. We'll come back to you.
Only if I get the photobomb him when he's on.
Well, Director Kremen is coming up.
Oh.
All right, so let's keep going.
Sure. All right, so next question is from Ronald Horry. Is the Anderson Dam project similar to the Calaveras Dam reconstruction in terms of scope and time to build?
Oh, I wish I could answer this. I don't know much about the Calaveras Dam reconstruction and rebuild. I've seen what had occurred. I've seen the time lapse of how they did the reconstruction. I believe their reconstruction is a little bit differently, is different, but it's very similar in terms of what we're doing. But I can't answer that question directly. However, what I'll do is, Mr. Horry, if you want to email me at ceo@valleywater.org, if you'd like to have a better discussion, I'll make sure that one of the engineers that's working on this and that has looked at both of those projects can get back to you and answer that question. I apologize. I don't know much about the Calaveras one. I see Mr. Crimin and his newest addition.
Feel free to say hello, or I'm going to just temporarily put you on. Oh, the little one. There you go. Okay, so moving on to the next question here.
Water clean and safe. Oh, it is.
There you go.
Indeed. Director Crimin, thank you for joining us, but we're going to keep going because we got about 15 minutes left in Director LeZotte's district.
All right, moving on to the next question here. This is from KN. Coyote Creek and Anderson have funds allocated through Measure B, which doesn't expire until 2028. Also, the board changed Measure B to reallocate Measure B funds to Coyote Creek after the flood in 2017. What is different in Measure S for Coyote Creek? Also, if changes are needed, why not just have the board make additional changes to Measure B?
Well, you can't just make additional changes to Measure B. And let me explain to you, and that's actually a good question, because in order to get those dollars to Coyote Creek, we had to take the dollars for another project. And so that's exactly one of the things that we are trying to fix. If you see what occurred, in order to get the dollars to Coyote Creek, the board had to remove those dollars for the Upper Penitencia flood protection project. So that right now we have a flood protection project which is completely not funded. And those people knew that they had the promise of getting their flood protection project funded. We are driving a broken car. We know that we don't have the dollars to do all the things that we wanted to do. When the board moved forward, they wanted to make sure that they kept the promises to all the neighborhoods that got it. The dollars that were there for Coyote Creek initially in Measure B were only to start to begin the studies in order to look at Coyote Creek. Upper Penitencia have their dollars removed to go to Coyote Creek. So that is the difference. This is what occurred, is that we need to basically replace Measure B, because it's broken, with Measure S, which will work to provide for long-term flood protection, to provide for long-term clean, safe water, and to provide for long-term environmental protection for this valley. That is the problem.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the next question here. We have a question from John Lyles. I am also concerned with the homeless camping on the natural habitat of the Guadalupe River. Many trees and plants have been cut down, and these are all recently planted, and there have been fires. Is there a way to prevent destruction prior to getting clearance to clear the camps? The trash is accumulating in the riverbed.
And this goes right back to, this is, like I said, this is our number. These are not unique complaints. We're aware of this. Some of the plant destruction that you're talking about is some of our mitigation planting. One of the things that I had been working on with the San Jose Police Department prior to COVID is that we were working with the San Jose Police on both Coyote as well as the Upper Guadalupe area on a pilot project for policing. One of the things that we were trying to move towards is basically to move also towards environmental citations. Well, COVID has blown that up. We're going to try to revisit that. That's one of the things that I reached out to the police chief on again and said, you know, can we revisit this on what are we doing? Yes, we've got to do better and basically be able to protect our environment. If it wasn't for COVID, I think we probably would be moving towards not only a pilot project to address exactly what you're talking about, but also a project that would work. And going, not to go back to Measure S, but you heard me talk about the dollars in Measure S to deal with policing and basically being able to do these things. Right now, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, I encourage folks to think, when's the last time you saw a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service ranger in the area that would provide tickets for environmental protection? And if you think about it, the answer is probably never. So if we could do something different, if we can approach this differently, not only could we not provide for protections for the environment, we could deal with some of the situations where you're talking about where these plants and our mitigation areas are being cut down. We also have folks digging into our levees because they're trying to basically create a home for themselves in the levees. This is true. Not when they're digging into our levees and creating a home for themselves in the levees, what they're doing is they're putting our project at risk to flood that neighborhood. So that's why it's so important that we work not only with the policies that are moving forward. If Measure S passes, well, I hope we'll be able to address it, but we've got to work with the city of San Jose. We've got to work with the county of Santa Clara. And I can tell you, we have the full commitment of this board in order to move forward. This is one of the #1 emails, #1 complaints. We are going to try to find a way to deal with this. I think just sitting back and having people call different agencies isn't working. I think we're going to probably end up, hopefully, with a joint powers authority of all the different agencies, so we can get a one-stop shop to deal with some of these things. But yes, this is definitely a problem. Yes, we definitely want to address it.
All right, thank you. And I do want to remind our participants and attendees to feel free to raise your hand if you want to ask a verbal question. We are getting up here on the hour, or 6:30. The next question comes from John. I might butcher the last name, Plocher or Plotcher. Quote unquote, will be in Measure S ... Does this mean nothing will be done unless it passes and goes into effect next year? The excuse of can't do, go ahead.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Does this mean nothing will be done unless it passes and goes into effect next year? The excuse of can't do anything because of COVID and CDC is getting old. COVID will be with us for years, and we need to find ways to do what is needed now, even before we solve the COVID problem.
Mr. Plosher, I completely agree with you. No, it doesn't mean that we won't be doing anything. I'm just saying that what it provides for us is the dollars to do more than what we're doing now. One of the things that we're doing now is just the clearing of camps. I was just informed today by one of my deputies that's responsible for basically dealing with encampments that the city of San Jose is working with us now and saying that we're going to go back in and clean encampments. The removal of people is what the CDC has provided guidelines for not removing people. I do hope and I do trust that hopefully this time next year we're no longer here. We have a vaccination and we can remove people from camps and we can encourage people out. But the answer is no, we cannot do the social services programs because the board does not have the dollars or the capability to do that right now. Measure S does. What we do have the dollars for is we'll remove them. And right now we're taking money from different funds because there's no dollars left in our existing Safe Clean Water program to do it, but basically to provide for cleanups in order to move funds. So we're moving this from other projects in order to do this. But no, we're not just going to sit on our laurels. No, we're not going to just say we can't do anything. We're going to find a way to make this work. But I'm just saying my hope is placed in Measure S because of the simple fact that it'll allow us to do more.
All right, we have a question from KN. I haven't heard about the new endowment requirements referenced earlier. Can you provide a reference to the bill or other action that added this new requirement?
There was a bill that there was language that was provided by I can't recall what agency, but the Valley Water, we actually introduced the bill to provide for an exception to that. That was under Senator Jim Bill, I believe it was 1039 is the bill we introduced, and that was in 2018. What the endowment regulations that were put forth probably in 2016 and were changed to allow for agencies to provide an endowment or any other financial insurances. So within the bill, it allowed for them to make a choice of financial assurances. So at the time, we didn't know that that was just going to mean endowments. However, when the agencies implemented it, they said that we're just going to implement endowments because that's the easiest thing to do. We were surprised. We would have probably challenged that because what they were trying to get is for agencies that weren't paying for their mitigation, agencies that weren't paying for their regulatory responsibilities, agencies that weren't taking care of the environment. They weren't targeting us, but we ended up carrying the burden of having that $5 million endowment plus project. So that basically how the endowments work is they put the money in the bank, that $5 million in the bank, and then you draw off of the interest of that endowment in order to pay for the mitigation. Now, imagine what that does to the cost of a project, and that's just for an average size project. So yes, there's different ways to do that. Yes, there was a legislation. I would encourage you, if you want to email me at ceo@valleywater.org, I'd be happy to have you talk to my Sacramento office. I can give you the history of how these endowments ended up dropping on us. But I could tell you, we did not know that that was coming in 2012. We did not know that the Coyote Creek flooding was going to come in 2012. We did not know that all these people of color were going to be flooded in 2012. I could tell you in 2012, when we put the program out, we did not know that the board would have to take the money from the Pope people at Upper Berryessa in order to get it done. We did not know the Corps of Engineers was not going to give us dollars for the San Francisco project. We did not know that Morgan Hill and the Morgan Hill area, we're not going to get dollars from the federal government for Yagas. There's so many things that we did not know. And I mean, one of the things I point to is we probably did not know that the iPhone was going to be out because it's only been out for 11 years. Technologies and times change. We're riding in a broken car, and we're hoping that the valley, that people will look at this and say, yes, this is the right thing for us, and this is the right thing now.
All right, thank you. And then the final question was just more of a thank you from John for answering the question from earlier. It looks like we're okay. I mean, any final questions from the audience? Feel free to raise your hand or put it in the Q&A. We are running.
Albert, I know as we're winding down, and I think as we have Director LeZotte here, you know, these are Director LeZotte's residents, and you know, I've known Director LeZotte for quite some time, and many of you may not have known that she was on the San Jose City Council. Many of you may have known, but she's had a long history career, not only the San Jose City Council member, but she also served in the Planning Commission. So, Director LeZotte, question for you. You are a long-term San Jose City Council member known for your environmental stewardship stances. What do you see different in your elected role on the City Council versus your elected role as a Valley Water Board of Director? Oh, you're on mute, Director LeZotte.
I don't know whether I'm doing that or Albert does.
Okay. Yeah, it's me. Sorry about that.
No, I think it's me. Well, I think the thing I see that's different is that I see more direct evidence of my environmentalism on Valley Water, because one of the things that I pushed for was our projects to have a net positive effect on everything we do, and to make sure that we have 3 missions, you know, flood control, safe, clean water, and environmental stewardship. And so by pushing the environmental stewardship and making it part of every project, I think I've been able to see more direct consequences. When I was on the City Council, it was more of a broad theory. And I felt as good about it because, you know, I introduced the concept of green building to the City of San Jose. You know, that's something we do in a different way here at the Water District Green Building. We build our capital projects to make them environmental. In the City of San Jose, we actually built buildings, and we built them to be green, to be environmentally friendly, both inside and out, for the workers and for the environment. So there's differences, but there's a lot of similarities in you know, when you're working to protect the environment. That also includes the people who live in the environment, whether it's in a building, whether it's out walking around in the street, or whether it's people who live near creeks that are prone to flooding. You want to make sure that the environment they live in is protected, and that when we do a project, it's not just with concrete channels, but we go in and we put in mitigation planting, and we make sure that the environment around there is a healthy environment, not only for the people that live there, but the creatures who live there. That it's better for the fish, it's better for the plants, it's better for all of the other amphibious animals that live in and around everything that we do. So, you know, it's I guess the bottom line is it's a little more obvious sometimes in what we're doing and how directly we're affecting a broad spectrum of what people typically think of as the environment. People don't typically think of a green building as being environmental, but you think of building a project environmentally and enhancing the environment. So I think it's probably a little more satisfying, although being at times the lone voice in both places, got old, but eventually I turned everybody onto environmentalism. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, well, you've long been known for your environmental stances, both here as in Valley Water. I know many in the community appreciate what you've done for the environment. And before we wrap this up, I did want to say at least hello to one of my favorite Blossom Valley residents and one of your constituents. I see my mother is in the audience, so hi, Mom. I definitely want to make sure I recognize at least one resident that is there. And so at that, what I do want to do, I want to thank everybody for showing up. We are having this, and I do see some folks that are joining us at multiple things, and so it's definitely good to see some of you that like the shtick so much that you're joining us at others, and that you're welcome to continue to join us throughout the Valley. I believe my next one will be with Director Kremen, who popped into Director LeZotte on October 6th at 5:30. We'll be talking about Palo Alto the shoreline area up by the Palo Alto area. We'll be talking about the projects that will be moving forward, hopefully, in that area, and some of the other important issues in around District 7, which spans all the way from Palo Alto kind of down the westerly side of Santa Clara County, all the way into a portion of Almaden Valley. So with that, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank everybody for coming to be able to ask me questions. If there's other questions that you didn't get a chance of me to ask, you can go ahead and email me at ceo@valleywater.org. You're welcome to join us at our last 3 events throughout Santa Clara County. I think these are good to be able to talk about some of the things that Valley Water is doing, and hopefully, when we're out of COVID, I'll have the chance to meet you personally. Director LeZotte, I'm going to toss it back over to you for any final words.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Excellent job. Thank you, Albert, for getting Facebook up. I'm sure the people on Facebook appreciated it. I want to have a shout out to Dave Noel. He's one of the people that I recognized on here, and some of the others that are out there. This is a great idea, and it's important that we continue to reach out to the public to let them know what we're doing, and that we have their best interests at heart. So good night, everyone. Thank you. Please stay safe and healthy.